Hello and welcome to The Print. I am Debdutta, and today we are in discussion with independent journalist, geopolitical analyst, and a doctoral fellow at Georgia State University, Asif bin Ali. Asif is an expert when it comes to matters of Bangladesh, and the Bangladesh government has just announced that it's going to hold its elections on the 12th of February. With the election dates now announced, we discuss with Asif what the political landscape in Bangladesh currently looks like. Welcome to The Print, Asif.
Thank you, Debdutta, for inviting me. It's my pleasure.
Asif, to begin with, for starters, this is a very significant election for Bangladesh because this is the first election since the student movement and Hasina's ouster. Given that, the current political situation that is playing out, Hasina's party, Awami League, has not been allowed to contest the elections. So she is out of the political fray. BNP and Jamaat are the two larger national parties that are, among the key players. And BNP's acting chairperson Tariq Rahman remains out of Bangladesh. He's currently in exile in London. And there are a lot of narratives around why he has not been able to come back to Bangladesh, what are the security threats, etc. Then there is Jamaat, where they have been trying to woo the floating voters who are not sure where their votes should go right now amid such a politically volatile situation. If I were to ask you to begin with, how would you describe the current political situation in Bangladesh right now, and with the election dates now announced, what do you think is going to happen going forward?
Thank you very much, Debdutta. Uh, Bangladesh is going through a transition period, okay, from autocratic rule towards the democratic path, and in between the time we are observing, it's a transition period. There was pressure on the government and expectations that election would be held as soon as possible because it was evident from the phenomena we were seeing on the ground that the government control over the administration, over the ruling, and the grip was losing day by day. There were chaos emerging in different sections of the society. Government was trying their best in order to establish control and bring normalcy. However, as we can see, Bangladesh is a country that cannot be governed without a political master. And that's what happened, and that's the major problem the government faced. That though they have no bad intention in governing, however, they lack the political maturity and they have lacked the political acceptance and also kind of authority. And there comes a political government elected by the people, taking over the country's governance and providing services and bringing stability back. Now, we right now have relative stability, I would say. Yes, there are disturbance in different sectors and different power holders are playing their games with their different intentions. But as of now, there is a relative stability. Now, in order to move towards the permanent stability, we need this election to happen as soon as possible. And thankfully, the government has announced the date, and it's now pretty clear that if everything goes well and if nothing, natural disaster happens, we are expecting to have the election by 12 February 2026. Now, uh, right now, the scenario is, and the main debate was, is this election going to be inclusive or the election going to be participatory? So let me define what does this two word means. The inclusive means that the election would be held where BNP, Jamaat, all other parties, including Awami League, will get a chance to participate in the election. So that is what everybody talked about, inclusivity. Whereas the participatory concept of election refers that the election will happen in a way that every citizen will participate and majority of the political party will participate as well, and election would be free and fair. However, Awami League would not be able to participate in that up until they face the trial, and also they are ban over the party can be withdrawn. Now, there is this fight between these two words, inclusivity or participatory. I think, given the current situation, the election is walking towards a participatory election, not an inclusive election. Now, the question is, will this ensure long term stability? I would say no, this would not ensure long term stability. Of course, a participatory election could be the best option. However, right now, I would say, is the ground ready for the participatory election? Probably not, because uh, there is still anger about Awami League. There is still people who are angry with what Awami League did in the previous government. Also, the most of the Awami League leadership is out of the country, and there is ban on the Awami League party activities. So, given all that context, I don't think it would be feasible for now for Awami League even to participate in the election in that short notice, and that government are also not willing to allow Awami League to participate in that election. So it is pretty much clear that the inclusive election is not going to happen. Now, the government responsibility is to make sure that the election remains participatory, even if it is not inclusive, because anyway we need a election. Now, in order to do that, government needs to, open up the space, give a level playing field. All the candidates, be it from the major political party like BNP or Jamaat or like smaller political parties, they should get enough and equal security on the ground while they are campaigning for the election. Now, that comes to the responsibility of the government. And I believe that government will take those necessary steps. However, I'm not sure how successful the government will be in order to do that, because we have to understand that our police system is under severe threat. Since 5th August, it has been, it has faced a huge pressure, and many of the, segments of those security forces are not, working properly. They're trying to get hold their foot. However, I would say that there is an intention among the political parties as well as among the government that that to ensure that the election should be accepted by the country's people as well as by the international community. So I hope, despite all these limitations and challenges, there would be goodwill from the political parties and the government to uh, go for a acceptable, credible, participatory election. However, again, I would say that this may give a temporary stability, but keeping a bigger political party out of the election process would eventually create a larger political pressure within the system. And that would be a problem that has to be dealt by the elected government.
Right. Following up on what you said, key points to take away from your answer. One is, for our larger audience, I would like for you to elaborate on the part where you say that Awami League or Hasina government was authoritarian in nature. When, as a Bangladeshi, you use the term authoritarian, what do you mean? And then the larger questions on the ban on the party, if we take it from one party to another. So the ban on Awami League and Hasina and their party, like you said, the membership is currently out of the country. The workers are out of the country. There's a lot of anger and resentment against what happened. They want some kind of an acknowledgement that is still in the coming. Given that they have said that they will protest and they will not allow the election to happen if they are not allowed to contest, how do you think, keeping the other two larger parties separate and aside, how do you think Awami League is looking at this election?
See, now it's not that easy to get the view of Awami League, because there is a ban on them, and therefore the major national newspapers and televisions are not necessarily presenting what Awami League thinks about. What do we know from their Facebook post, online activities, is that yes, Awami League have said that they will do everything possible to stop the election, because they think that they have the right to participate in the election. Now, coming back to the question, when you ask me like why I use the term authoritarian, in Bangladesh context, the widely used term is the fascist government. So that's what like majority of the people use it with Awami League. In my understanding as an academic, I would say yes, there are some elements which were present in Awami League governance, which can be related to the fascism. However, that is not enough to call the party as a fascist party from an academic point of view. But in a popular point of view, the people call them. I would rather say it is a very authoritarian government that it was, and it was a kind of semi-elected, dictatorship in a way. Now, why that is? Because one of the academic, Professor Ali Riaz, termed the Awami League government as the hybrid regime. And these terms can be discussed further. I don't want to complicate the answer here. The only thing that we need to look at that the Awami League government from 2009 to 2014 was an elected government. It came through an elected process. The election was credible and acceptable. From 2014 to 2024, there were three elections: 2014, 2018, and 2024. None of these elections are credible. None of these elections are participatory. None of these elections are neither internationally accepted nor domestically accepted. So, for that 10 years, the party governing was based on this one person and the people around that person, and it started off showing all the symptoms of an authoritarian government. So from that point of view, I would say like that 10 years of that Awami League government from 2010 to 2024 can be termed as an authoritarian government because they haven't went to the public for the mandate in a real sense. So the mandate have been fabricated, and that is why we can term Awami League from that perspective. Now, coming back to the current question, but does that mean that because of that, Awami League would be kept out of the election?
Right.
There is a debate that because Awami League rigged three elections and stayed in power for extra 10 years without taking people's mandate, so they should be kept out of the election for three constructive times. So there is a popular debate about it. Now, in terms of debate, it sounds good to listen. But then I am a very realist on this perspective. I have to think about what would be the best to ensure the stability and the security of my own country. Now, from that perspective, Awami League is still one of the biggest political party. So in Bangladesh, the BNP and Awami League still remains the two major political party. Jamaat is now the third major political party, and keeping any of these political party, like either keeping BNP out of the system or Jamaat out of the system, cost a lot for Awami League. So when they were trying to keep BNP and Jamaat out of the politics, Awami League turned into an authoritarian government. Now, if the next government want to do the same thing, that they want to keep Awami League out of the system, out of the politics, by nature, they will turn into a security state because they have to consistently fight Awami League political party members' agitation on the street. So the government would spend much of its energy and time to deal with the political turmoil instead of focusing on the development, education, and the stability of the country. So this is a kind of circle that we are in. Now, what is the end of that circle? The end of that circle is an acceptable, credible election where all parties are participating and people are deciding who are to govern the country and who are not to govern the country. Now, coming back to the judgment of the Awami League activities, Awami League has done exceptionally bad things when they were in power. For example, abduction of political individuals, force killing, extrajudicial killing, human rights violations, and these are documented now. Now, these are the crimes can be prosecuted in the court. The court needs to be very free and fair, and it has to follow the international standard. However, I'm not particularly sure how the current court is following that international standard. There are a lot of limitations about it. So the only way to solve the Awami League problem is that the Awami League leader who are responsible of snatching people's right by fabricating election, they should be brought before justice. A fair trial should take place, and these people should be judged in front of the law. And then the party as a whole have to decide that who would be the new leadership of the party and how they will come to the people, how they will, say sorry and accept the judgment, and how they want to participate in the regular political process. So this is a two-way responsibility. We cannot just blame the government that you have kept Awami League out of the politics, out of the game. The blame equally goes to Awami League as well. So this is government responsibility to think in the long-term stability and make sure a space where all good actors can play politics. It is Awami League responsibility to prove that they're responsible actor, that they wants to commit for democracy and they want to come within the system and to participate and get people's mandate. And they want to separate all those political leaders who were involved in the massacre that happened in the July and August in the capital of Dhaka and across the country. So this balance is very important. Now, unfortunately, neither the government nor the Awami League is interested to have that balance because the anger is so high and the resentment is so deep that neither Awami League wants to say sorry or publicly acknowledge their mistakes in front of the people, nor the government is in a position to give a space Awami League, because then that would create a huge pressure on the government as well. So we are in a stalemate situation. There is no easy answer for that current situation. It will take time, definitely. But I personally believe that if we once get the election done, and if our elected government comes in the power, then there would be more room for political negotiation. And also, there would be more room for citizen communities to participate in the process of bringing the country in a normal political atmosphere.
Right. And, when we talk about political parties and the political void that Bangladesh is looking at right now, there's a lot of discussion on why there was this delay in the elections, what kind of referendum was proposed, what were the proposed reforms that were delayed. I will come to all of that in a bit. My next question to you is, the narratives that have come around Tariq Rahman's return to Bangladesh. Now, BNP's key person, Khalida Zia, remains in critical care in Dhaka hospital, and Tariq Rahman has said that although he does want to return, there are uncontrollable factors which are preventing his return, and he in turn has now taken to social media to, thank people and discuss on what are his kind of the restrictions that he has. Although the BNP party members have not picked up the fact that there were uncontrollable factors apart from that one Facebook post that he has made. Given that, with Awami League now not in the political theater, BNP becomes the next big party. For a leader, now that election dates have been announced, and there was reports around the fact that once the election dates are announced, Tariq Rahman might come back to Bangladesh for canvassing and for political purposes. Now that the dates are here, why is Tariq not returning to Bangladesh, and what can be the implications of the party's biggest leader being missing at such a crucial point in the country's history?
Well, there is no doubt that right now the entire country is looking at Mr. Tariq, and he seems to be the person who can pull out the country out of this mess and chaos. There is a lot of expectation from him, from all corner of the society. And after Khaleda Zia, it's pretty much clear that Mrs. Jia is not physically capable anymore to lead the party. So it is inevitable that as her heir and also, a person who is leading the BNP for a long time is going to take over the party, not as a interim chairman, but as a full chairman, and also is likely to be the prime minister if the party got elected. Now, Tariq has created hope. At the same time, there are dissatisfaction about his return as well. So after 5th August, we see a significant rise of far-right group in the political space. Many are terming it as the Islamo-fascist group. Now, these are particular group and the sections who want to govern the country by the Islamic law and doesn't recognize the other voices. Some of these political groups are also calling that democracy is haram and not accepted. And they have good support on the ground. There is no doubt about it. However, the political parties like BNP, Jamaat Islami, and others, they are more interested in a participatory election and carry on the governance as the system works. Now, Jamaat has its own agenda, which is more converting the country into a state that is depend on Islamic Sharia. And I don't think, as a liberal Democrat, I would be defending that argument. But that is Jamaat expectation. Now, what would happen to the people who are not endorsing Jamaat, or who are, standing for liberal democracy, who are standing for a middle path, a centrist path? And there comes the role of BNP and Tariq Rahman. So for last 1.5 years, the public messaging that Tariq has delivered, the speech that he has delivered, the kind of conversation, the kind of image he has presented in front of the people, he seems to like to cherish the liberal democracy. He seems to cherish people's rights, human rights, and citizens' rights. So these are the promises that he is making, and that has created a kind of hope among the people. However, the hope is fading away day by day because he is not returning to Bangladesh. Now, there is no doubt, even if he doesn't return to Bangladesh, the BNP will win the election. But the question is, it's not about how BNP is winning the election. Maybe BNP will lose some seat because the opposition will use Tariq's non-return as a political tool. So they already, some of the opposition groups are saying, like, can Tariq be trusted because he is not coming back in the country because, for foreseeable reasons, or he is not beside her mother. Now, this is the opposition tactic and the rhetoric that they are trying to play game with. But the question is, it is also important for Tariq to come back to Bangladesh, to walk with the farmers, to go to the mosque, to go to the temples, to go to the church, meet with the people, shake hand with them, and give them in-person hope that, see, there was a transition and there was a chaos, but there is a hope way forward. We need to participate together in that way forward. Now, this has to be done physically. This has to be done, he as a person presenting on the ground, not someone speaking behind a computer. Now, there is also a reason that I cannot deny, that the Bangladesh situation is very volatile right now. So what we see in the last 54 years history of the country, whenever there was a very volatile situation, and in that volatile situation, whoever have come to power, they had to face significant amount of physical threat. Now, one of the major volatile time was 1971. Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman came to the power, and he and his family got assassinated. The second volatile time was 1975, and at that time, uh, a freedom fighter, a person who lead his own group bravely in the liberation war, and who also announced the liberation of Bangladesh in favor of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. He was one of the popular leader at that time and took over the power. Yes, he was a military general, but the power handover was coming out of an uprising. So he tried to fix the country. He tries to deal with that volatile situation, but he also had to face the biggest challenge, and he was also killed after a while. So you see, like, whenever there is a volatile situation in politics, it's very difficult for a
You are
national leader
sorry. You
to.
are talking about Ziaur Rahman here, right?
Yes, I'm talking about Zia Rahman here. So it's very difficult for a national leader to ensure their safety and the security, but at the same time provide service to the people. Because during these times, institution fails to provide security to the leader. Now, what happens in a more stable situation? General Hussein Muhammad Ershad came after Ziaur Rahman, or later on after 1990s, there was election and elected government came in the power. Like Khaleda Zia was there for 2 terms, and later Sheikh Hasina also came in the power. Now, these are more stable times, and in stable times, yes, they face some threat. There were some life threat on them as well, but the institution functioned, and therefore they lived. They were able to, carry on their work in a relative secure position. Even when, if you look at the 5th August situation, when Sheikh Hasina's office and government residence was taken over by the people, and when she was fleeing the country, the security establishment was able to give her safe passage. It didn't fail. So it took her up until the border and ensured her life safety. This was possible because the institution worked even at the last end. Now, since 5th August, I would not claim that the institutions are perfectly functioning, and there are different challenges as well. There are several security risks as well. So the 2024 is another volatile time in the history of Bangladesh. And in these volatile times, the only leader who can take out the country out of that situation is Tariq Rahman, and people are expecting from him. And looking back to the history and relating it with the present, I would not be surprised if his life is under danger or not. So I think as a party, they're thinking both about the security challenges and also about the public demand. Now, if you ask me what my personal opinion is, I think a politician needs to take risk, even if it is difficult for them, because sometimes politicians shows us the path that the other people fail to do so. And there comes the courage and the bravery and the personal risk that they take. So I am expecting that since now the election date has been announced, and it is likely that Mr. Tariq Rahman would be contesting from one constituency, that is Bogura 6. So he would be participating in the election. So I think it's a high time for him to return to Bangladesh and uh, to add this encouragement among the party members and others. And also, this is also important to notice that you see, BNP is facing a serious challenge from Jamaat Islami. Jamaat Islami, in terms of its promotion, in terms of narrative building, in terms of its strategy, they are outperforming BNP in many cases, especially in the online space. Uh, BNP is trying to fight back uh, based on whatever I was seeing on the social media, but it is just doing the troubleshooting. It is not controlling the narrative. So Jamaat is controlling the narrative, BNP is just troubleshooting. Now, one of the reason of these things is that Tariq Rahman is far away from Dhaka. Because whenever the leader is far away from Dhaka, so leaders and the people's connection, there are so many gatekeepers in that process. So these gatekeepings doesn't help in a free and fair politics. But when the leader comes in the center, epicenter, in the ground, then all those gatekeepers got vanished. And then there is a direct contact established with the leader and the party peoples, the common mass. And that helps a party to boost its energy and to strategize what is needed to be done. So even from that perspective, I think BNP leaders are also expecting that their leader should come in the ground and uh, you know encourage them with the political fight they are trying to give with their opponent Jamaat Islami.
And with that, Asif, the important question here is, since we have already begun the discussion around Jamaat, for the longest time when Awami League was in power, BNP and Jamaat were seen as one united opposition against the Awami League, right? Uh, Now that that equation, that political equation has changed, we also see that in the kind of the Facebook posts that Tariq Rahman makes, the kind of narratives that BNP is pushing, there seems to be a very evidently there is a gap between how the BNP is functioning and the Jamaat is functioning, like we just discussed a little while ago. And the BNP, it seems like, is now no longer moving towards the center right. It is the kind of politics that it is pushing forward to is the more secular, pluralistic politics that, like you said, or like we discussed, is what Bangladesh needs right now. How do you think this divide between BNP and Jamaat is going to play out? And if Tariq Rahman does not return at such a crucial time, are you still confident that his party is the party that is going to win? Like you said, that it is pretty much assured that BNP is going to win and Tariq might come back in power. But if for that to happen, you also need to actively counter the Islamic narratives like we just discussed. And a lot of such narratives have been on the rise. Since 5th August, there has been a lot of discussion on how the Islamic forces within Bangladesh have consolidated. The ban on Jamaat was lifted. Jamaat is now contesting the elections, I think, for the first time, if I'm not wrong, since 2013. And a lot of narratives that we see in the reports that come from Bangladesh is how almost there is a massive power consolidation within the Jamaat where they are taking over institutions. The government is cowering to them when it says that we are going to ban PT classes or music in schools, football matches. We see what's happening with the whole gender equation there. Like we discussed with Jamaat with Jamaat right now in control of the narrative, and with uh, Tariq missing in picture, how do you think two things? First, that the BNP Jamaat divide is going to play out, and second, what next for Jamaat going on here? If like you said in the elections, BNP comes to power, what if it does not? What if it's a 50-50 race or it's a thin line? How do you see the once friends to now foes equation play out?
Well, thank you so much. You have asked me multiple questions, and those require more nuanced answer. Like, for example, this entire idea that BNP is not a secular uh, party is itself a wrong idea, because this is how some of the political parties are framed in the context of Bangladesh. Now, I'm not here to defend Jamaat or BNP or Awami League, anyone, but as an academic, my position would be, and what I have understood based on the reading of Bangladesh politics, is that both the BNP and the Awami League were the centrist party. Okay, so they both accepted the story of Bangladesh, that is the liberation war. They both accepted that the country should be ruled by constitution, and the parliament should be the place to discuss the law and make the law. And in no way they are against Islamizing, they are in favor of Islamizing the state. So now there comes the definition of secularism. What does the secular definition means? Now, are you referring the secularism in terms of the French context? Are you referring secularism's definition in the context of Britain or in the context of India? So Bangladesh has a very complicated understanding regarding secularism. Okay, so I would not go to that debate of secularism. Rather, I would look at what the party wants. So from that perspective, both Awami League and BNP wanted a modern, liberal, democratic state. Now, in terms of the support group, Awami League were more left linear, center left linear. BNP played the both role. Sometimes BNP moved towards more like center right, or sometimes center left, depending on the need. Now, Jamaat comes to the right politics, like the right wing politics. Now, uh, it was actually Awami League who pushed Jamaat and BNP to come together, particularly like uh, in 2001, when the Jamaat and BNP came together. They wanted to win the election. But then Awami League also made coalition with Jamaat Islami to win the election, and also they have participated together in the election in 1996 as well. Uh, so the point I'm trying to make is that Jamaat was a factor to be used by both Awami League and BNP to come to the power. So that was the overall understanding. Since 2024, the way Awami League started framing the entire narratives, it was all about Jamaat and BNP. But we see Jamaat and BNP started drifting away from like around 2018 and later on. It was not like that evident, but it was pretty much visible that they were drifting away. Now, from that context, it was inevitable that Jamaat and BNP would be facing each other in absence of Awami League. So I would say that the political context of Bangladesh cannot be understood if we do not accept these differences and the historical realities. Now, coming back to BNP Jamaat divide now, yes, this is right now, the division is very visible. One of the reason is As I told you, BNP and Awami League both believe the story of the making of Bangladesh. So, what is the story of making of Bangladesh? Any modern nation state, in order to have stability and in order to have its sense of identity, they have stories. And and these stories are the stories of liberation war, the stories that give them this purpose, sense of identity. So for the Bangladesh, the story is the liberation war, 1971. This is how we came into being. Okay, so both BNP and Awami League accept that story. Now, historically, Jamaat opposed that story. Yes, they have accepted the independent Bangladesh, but they have never accepted the crime that they have done in past in 1971. They still, you know, play a dual role. Some of their leaders say they are sorry if they have done any mistake. So look at the if clause. And then some of their supporters and the leaders also uh, identify that 1971 is an Indian conspiracy. It was not the real liberation war for Bangladesh, and that and they prefer more 1947 than 1971. And some of these people even started placing 2024 uprising against 1971. So, and they claim that this is the second independence where we got the sovereignty. So we haven't got the sovereignty in 1971. So these are the narratives that Jamaat are trying to play, okay, in both way, in the public space as well as in their political manifesto. Now, BNP in any way cannot accept it because you need to understand the founder of BNP, he himself was the person who participated in the liberation war, who was one of the person who revolted against the Pakistan army, went to Kalurghat Betar Kendra and read out the Liberation War Declaration in favor of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. This is a historical fact. We cannot deny that. Now, I don't want to go to the debate of Awami League and BNP, who is the declarer of the independence or not. Those debate doesn't help us. Let's straightly look at the fact. So a person who participated in the liberation war, a person whose political party, all the secretary generals of that party are somehow freedom fighters. So since the formation of the BNP till now, all the party secretaries that were there, they are liberation war fighters. Now, it doesn't mean that BNP didn't give a space to some of the people who participated in favor of Pakistan during the 1971. Yes, there are leaders who were Rajakar in 1971 in BNP, and you will find the similar leaders in Awami League as well. You will find the more of them in Jamaat as well. So this is not like a black and white situation, but even
Yeah,
in
I
terms
mean,
of this,
I don't want to cut you here, but let us also not forget that the whole 2024 uprising started because Hasina started calling the protesters Razakars. I mean, this is a very important narrative within the Bangladesh political circles.
I agree with you because the term was abused and misused. The Rajakar is a genuine case for those who participated in 1971 and helping and aiding the Pakistan army. But in 2024, the Rajakar was not to refer those people who participated in that time. It was to refer anyone who is opposing Hasina.
Protesting.
Anyone who is criticizing Hasina is termed as Rajakar or Shibir, and that is indiscriminate use of this particular word has reduced the importance of that word, and therefore people didn't like it. So right now in Bangladesh, the mostly common used word is fascist enabler or pro-fascist. I'm pretty damn sure in 4 or 5 years time people will be tired with that, because any word, any term, if you misuse, overuse, or if you use it to stop the voice of your opposition, people do not like it. So coming back to the point, like the BNP Jamaat divide, BNP Jamaat divide is supposed to happen, and this is a reality right now. And what we can see from Tariq Rahman and his public messaging, he's clearly blaming Jamaat for its role in 1971, and also because the way Jamaat is propagating, because Jamaat is propagating that BNP is the corrupt political party who is responsible for every corruption happening, And Jamaat is not responsible for anything. It hasn't done any corruption, and it has never come to the power. But that is actually, frankly, not true. Jamaat was in political power from 2001 to 2006 as a part of the BNP Jamaat coalition government. And if you look at the nepotism that they have done at that time, unthinkable. So the nepotism of building, almost like 200 institutions, bank, hospital, different groups, even like water production factory as well. And so how did they do that? They have abused and misused their power. They have manipulated the system to get those fundings and to establish those platforms. Now, Jamaat claim that they have built these institutions because they are good at building them, but then this is also a questionable attempt from a political economy point of view. Can a political party build a bank? Can a political party build a hospital and employ only the Jamaat supporters in those hospitals and in those banks, and then later use that bank and hospitals and those institutions to achieve their political goal? This is a clear violation of political norms, and this is a clear violation of free and fair game in the democratic politics. So when Jamaat is framing BNP as the corrupt political group and framing themselves as the honest and not accepting any of the mistakes that they have done in the past, be it in 1971 Liberation War, or be it the violence that its student wing have done in the campuses, or the kind of nepotism that they have done when they were in the government. So what left in the hand of BNP? They will play the old and the new rhetoric. So the old rhetoric is Jamaat is a collaborator in the liberation war. The new rhetoric is Jamaat is not giving space to women because there is 300 election is going to happen in 300 plus seats. The 50% of country's population is women, and Jamaat has not elected a single female candidate to participate with their banner. That says like their entire idea of keeping 50% women out of the power structure. And BNP are criticizing that. Now, if you ask me, like, do I endorse this old rhetoric? I would say there is a danger of using the old rhetoric, like because our politics is stuck in this rhetoric that who is in favor of liberation war and who is against liberation war. And that rhetoric, to some extent, paralyzed our politics for 54 years. We have not been able to move towards a more citizen-centric politics, a right-centric politics, where people's demand, the economic rights, people's civil rights would be the center of discussion. The entire discussion is around these liberation war narratives. This is not going to help anyway. But then the responsibility is not only on the shoulder of BNP or others. The responsibility also is on the shoulder of Jamaat, because how they are challenging the story. Because the reason that Jamaat is challenging the liberation war story, it's not that they want to go back to Pakistan. It's not possible to go back to Pakistan and reunite the Pakistan. Then why they are doing it? It's a simple ego that they are unable to accept the mistake of the past. They're unable to change their historical narratives, and they want to keep pushing their narrative with the hope that one day they will change the nation making story and take over the control of that story and replace them not as a collaborator of the Pakistan army in the past, but as a protector. Now, my point is, let's think in terms of future. Jamaat can start a fresh start, and they got a chance in 2024. Because when people slanted, or when people give that slogan, we all are Rajakar, it was not they are supporting Jamaat. They are challenging the abuse of that narratives. Jamaat had an opportunity to restart, but unfortunately, they first went back to the old rhetoric. They first challenged the liberation war history. They first started claiming that Sheikh Mujib collaborated with India to break away Pakistan. So it was not the independence of Bangladesh, but a breakaway of Pakistan. Like if you are doing politics in an independent Bangladesh, no matter whoever it is, Jamaat, BNP, or Awami League, the story of Bangladesh has to be accepted. There could be different explanation of that story. There could be different interpretation of that story. But you cannot just say that the 1971 Liberation War, it's a fake war, it's an Indian propaganda. You cannot say that the Pakistan army attacked the Bangladeshi people, the Bengali community, because there were persecution against the Bihari community in Dhaka. Yes, in 1971, every living being who lived in the territory of Bengal, they faced uh, immense amount of problem. They faced immense amount of violence, be it both the Bihari community, the Bengali community. I am not here to defend any of those human rights violations and all those violences. The point is, accepting those violence is a start, but then using one violence to justify another violence, and especially the entire machinery is leading a genocide, cannot be acceptable in any way. Now, coming back to the second question that you have asked, what if BNP fail to win if Tariq doesn't come back to Dhaka? Well, see, BNP would have to pay a certain amount of price if Tariq does not come back to Dhaka before election. There is no doubt about it. Because then the opposition, as I was saying before, would misuse this and abuse this to defame him and also to challenge his leadership. There is no doubt about it. And some people also think and endorse those opposition uh, uh, claim and criticism. So this may translate into the electoral system as well, the voting as well. However, the BNP is likely to win. We can claim it based on the surveys that we are right now seeing. Okay, so in last like 4 or 5 months, there were like 4 or 5 very well structured survey that happened. Those survey results are not conclusive, definitely, but it gives a pattern of the future voting. And there we see that BNP is likely to win, whereas Jamaat would also likely to take the second opposition in absence of Awami League in the election. So there is that sense of relief. But however, I don't think BNP should gamble on it because, you know, uh, the last acceptable election happened in 2008. And after that, we haven't have any electoral data to claim that this is the percentage of vote this party will get and that party will get. And uh, and the survey reports, they're mostly giving us correlational information, not the causal information. So we cannot only depend on the correlational information in order to claim something that this is what going to happen. So therefore, there is a potential risk that BNP may have to pay price in the election. BNP may get less number of seats, but however, with Tariq in Dhaka or with Tariq in London, it is likely that BNP is going to uh, get a significant amount of seats in the parliament to form the government. However, I want to say it with a caveat that nobody can predict the future. We can just we can just assume about it and share our possible thoughts with best available logic currently available.
Right. And, since we are talking about the future, I'll ask you one last question before I let you go, and that is Bangladesh's relations with India. Once elections are done, right now there's a strain in relations post the 2024 uprising. Whether BNP comes into power, whether it's a coalition government, whether like we just discussed, nobody can predict the outcome of the elections until the election results are out. In your opinion, how do you then see the Bangladesh India relations playing out in the future?
I think after the election, when the elected government will take over the power, it is likely that the Bangladesh and India relationship will going to be normalized. It would not be like super friendly, but it would be normalized, not like the current situation. So currently, each of the countries poking each other. Okay, each are playing narrative games, each are playing rhetoric games as well,
And there's
and
also a lot of Pakistan in the picture right now.
and there is a lot of Pakistan in the picture as well. I would not deny that. But the thing is that I personally believe both the Indian establishment and the Bangladesh establishment, they are not that irrational. They know that they are neighbor, they have to coexist together, and they are extremely needed for each other's internal security. Forget about any other things, forget about business or any other things. They are inseparable element for each other's domestic national security. Now, given to if we are presuming that BNP is going to form the government, and if we are presuming that that government will have a normalized relationship with India, now how much, what is the possibility of happening it? See, if we look back to the past, we would say like during the time of President Ziaur Rahman, who was the founder of BNP, they first, sit together and signed the Farakka water sharing treaty for 5 years. This is very interesting. That treaty was criticized in India as India was favoring Bangladesh a lot, whereas that treaty were well accepted in Bangladesh. So what happened at that time? So initially there were debate regarding the Farakka water sharing, and that debate started during the Pakistan era. So Bangladesh inherited it. And Indira Mujib, they both tried to solve that problem, but they couldn't. So later on, when Ziaur Rahman came to the power, he first took this initiative in the international community. So he went to the United Nations, he went to the Islamic conferences, and also NAM. So he internationalized the conflict. However, India was demanding that this is a bilateral issue, and as a two good neighbor, we need to sit together and solve this problem bilaterally. Now, in a current situation, anyone would think, oh, maybe they haven't solved the problem. They keep fighting. No, but it didn't happen. There was BJP government in India, BJP backed coalition government at that time, and then Ziaur Rahman's government in Bangladesh. They sit together, they discussed, and they solved the issue bilaterally for and signed a contract for 5 years. So that treaty was 5 years of water sharing between India and Bangladesh, and that is considered one of the successful treaty at that time. Now, there were examples that the BNP government collaborated honestly and with integrity, and also engaged with India to have reasonable solutions of the problems. But it was not always the same cases. There were incidents where BNP blamed India to intervening inside Bangladesh politics. Like, for example, in 2024, when there was huge pressure from the opposition that the election should be happen under a free, fair, and independent caretaker government, not under a political government. So the Indian Foreign Secretary at that time, Ms. Shujata, she came to Dhaka and she unnecessarily intervened in the Bangladesh domestic politics. And also, India can also blame BNP for the kind of security crisis the BNP government created from 2001 to 2006, particularly the 10 truck arms case, where those arms were about to get smuggled in the Indian territory by using the Bangladesh land. So I would say that Bangladesh and India, when the Bangladesh was under BNP government and India was either BJP government or Congress government, there were good examples of collaboration, of working together as a two independent foreign state, and also there are examples of not that much collaboration and animosity. Now, in 2024, I think both the BNP would learn from its past mistakes, and India will also learn from its past mistake. And whoever comes in the Bangladesh government, after the election, even if it is Jamaat Islami, if people elect Jamaat Islami, then Jamaat has a right to come to govern the country. So from that point of view, whoever comes in Bangladesh government, I think these two countries need to revisit their relationship in different ways. So from the Bangladesh point of view, Bangladesh needs to make sure that Bangladesh should not allow its land and territory and the sea area for any national security challenge for India. On the other hand, the India also should take a position that they will engage with Bangladesh in the business, in in the collaborations of national security or other areas, not with an intention to intervene in the domestic politics. So So the both countries needs to come to this understanding that don't intervene in the domestic politics, and also for Bangladesh, don't create security threat for the India. And I think this balance can be ensured, because right now when I see like the BNP and also the other like stakeholders in the power system, they seems to be understanding this dilemma. And also I believe like when I had conversations with some of the Indian journalists, they also understand and also express that yes, it's needed to have a more open understanding in terms of solving the problem. So I see a good future. However, I think one of the caveat would be Awami League, because I don't think India would be able to leave Awami League alone, given the kind of friendship that India has with Awami League as a political party. And also, if India leaves Awami League, or if India returns any Awami League leaders that the Bangladesh government wants them back and to do the trial. So Indian, foreign image, particularly in South Asia, would be under serious threat. So it is likely that India would be focusing more on their foreign image, and with the Awami League issue, they will remain silent. But Bangladesh government would be very sensitive about the Awami League issue, because what I am seeing after this election, once the elected government will come in the power, and eventually Awami League would also try to come back in the politics. And for Awami League, the only way to come back to politics is by showing their force on the street. That is unfortunate truth in Bangladesh, but this is what happens. If the political party shows that they have significant force on the ground, usually people start listening to them. This is unfortunate. This is not acceptable for a democratic system, but this is what it is. Now, at that time, the future government would be very serious about their security. And then they would be demanding more from the Indian government that, Awami League is doing that. So the solution for the Bangladesh government would be going for a political solution so that the problem can be solved within the domestic space. For India, it would be best that if they do not allow the any form of domestic intervention in Bangladesh politics, be it via any particular political party or any kind of groups. But I hope like both the country will understand that they are needed for each others, and I hope that both the country would also restart the people's to people connection, because it has been stopped for some time now. There are some challenges regarding getting visas for Bangladeshis. Yes, the visa has been opened in some areas, but still this is not like as expected. So I believe those are the areas where they need to work. And also one of the thing I think is very important between India and Bangladesh to work on trust building. Both the countries needs to now work on how to rebuild the trust on each other. So I was closely following with the recent visit of Bangladesh National Security Advisor to India, and the discussion with the International Security Advisor, though the press haven't reported much, but whatever the press reported from that, it seems the discussion went well, and they have maturely, discussed some of the issues, and I hope those discussions would be also pass over to the next upcoming government, and they will carry on a civil discussion and civil engagement with both the countries. But you see, on the ground, the anti-India politics is a reality in Bangladesh and in India, particularly in Assam, in West Bengal. Anti-Bangladesh politics is also real. So now it's the responsibility of the political government how to deal with these anti-India and anti-Bangladesh politics in their domestic home ground, and to have a understanding foreign relationship as a true independent sovereign state.
Right, absolutely. And on that note, thank you so much, Asif. I think this has been an extremely insightful interview. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Debdutta, for inviting me, and thank you, ThePrint, for organizing this interview. You have a good day.